I'm the white mouse, just in case you guys watching are curious. Mine's one that had too much caffeine as usual. Just kidding. Okay. Vayakhel Moshe et Kol. Ooh, I caught that. Kol Adat B'nai Yisrael. Vayomer Alehem Ele Hadbarim Asher Tziva Hashem La'aset. Ooh, La'asot. Whoa. Yeah, La'asot. That's weird. I'm not used to seeing that without a Vav. Okay, La'asot. And I only knew that because I think the asa is to do or to make. I can't remember that word somehow. So, La'asot Itam. Otam, excuse me. Otam.
Beautiful. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's go through this one more time a little bit faster.
Yes.
Vayakhel Moshe et kol adat b'nei Yisrael vayomer alehem ele hadvarim asher tziva Hashem la'asot otam.
I am so incredibly jealous or envious of your ability to pronounce that resh. It sounds so amazing every time you say that. I'm like, golly, I just want to clear my throat so I could try to make it better, sound better.
If you knew how long it took me
wow.
to do that, I'd really.
That is
I remember
insane.
Riding around in the car, trying to get that right, gargle with milk.
Welcome to TaNaCh Talk. I'm your host, William Hall, broadcasting live out of Kingsland, Texas, USA, with another episode of Learning Hebrew from the Weekly Torah Parsha with my dear friend in arms, Gavriel. Aryeh Sanders. Are you doing okay, brother? How are you today?
Let me check.
Checking that pulse.
I seem to be with you.
I am very grateful for that. It seems like we were just here yesterday. Why? We sure were, weren't we?
In real time, we were.
We
spaced out by the viewers.
Yeah.
But we've been trying to knock them out and stay ahead of the game.
I think once now that we're doing this now, I think it'll be easier to pace it at 6 or 7 days spacing instead of a 2-day spacing, which will make it a lot easier for you, my friend. And me too, of course. Very good.
Especially since
very
I have
good.
to go back to Israel next week. So.
Oh, right.
I prefer to do with the next one before the jet lag sets in.
I don't blame you. That's good. So, if you're new to the channel or new to the show, basically each week we'll be doing the weekly Torah portion. This is now week number 22, not episode 22. 22 weeks. 22nd. I was going to say the 22th. 22nd week of 52-week calendar. This is where this Torah Parsha falls. It'll be easy to keep track of. So we're going to get right into it. In the last 10 minutes or so, I want to hand it over to Gavriel because I really enjoy his learning from each week's Parsha because you never know what he's going to bring forth. And I've been enjoying it so far.
Sometimes he doesn't know what he's going to bring forth. So.
It's kind of on the fly.
Right.
That's okay.
But
you fly away.
Thank you very much.
Fly away, my friend.
So we are in chapter Lamed Hey, which is Lamed stands for 30 and Hey is for 5. Chapter 35 of the book of Exodus. And the Parsha is called Vayakhel. You can see it with vowel points right over here, Vayakhel. But I'm really going to start with a grammar piece that relates to what's going on right here. Kol Adat B'nai Yisrael. Now, we keep running into B'nai Yisrael. We've talked about Banim Shel Yisrael. We've talked in our last session about how a Hey turns into a Taf in a certain environment. So I'm going to deal with those two major things right now in our grammar section. And so I'm going to bring that up here with this screen. Let's see if it comes up. There it is. Okay. Now, we're talking about a concept called, can you read that word?
Smichut.
Yes. So smichut has some different applications. It comes from the word like samuch, which is very similar to the word karov, close to. So it has to do with adjacency, things being close to each other. And in our application of smichut right now, for example, we talk about, I'll back up a second, we talk about smichut parshiot, with the adjacency of the Torah portions. And I'll say that if you remind me when we come to the 10 minutes at the end, I'll say something very relevant about that. but I want to save it till then. So smichut is a grammatical formula as well, and it's really noun plus noun. So if we, for example, said kitchen table, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the word kitchen is describing the specific, as opposed to dining table, right? Or living room table. Or we could talk about military academy. Those are
Mm-hmm.
examples of noun plus noun. Now this is a case where the second noun modifies or further defines the first noun. It delimits it more. But before I dive into that, let's review things and things that describe things. What do I
Mm-hmm.
mean by that? Now, we call these nouns and adjectives. A noun is a person, place, thing, or a quality, and an adjective is pretty, tall, skinny, boring, fascinating. Those are adjectives. And most people know, if you're at this stage of learning with us, and they've had any basic experience with Hebrew, and this is certainly true with other languages, even Spanish, for example, you have the the adjective coming after the noun. So, for example, a good boy, in English, the adjective comes in front of it, but in Hebrew, we say boy good.
Kind of like in Spanish, does similar things, right?
Yes,
Like,
exactly
mm,
right. Yeah. Although you could say in Spanish, you could say un buen niño. So there are some exceptions to that. I know enough Spanish to be dangerous to myself. Muy peligroso. So in Hebrew, also you notice we don't have an that's called an indefinite article. Hebrew does not have that, whereas Spanish does. So here we say yeled tov. Another thing when we're talking about adjectives, nouns plus adjectives, it has to agree with the noun in gender and number. Well, what does that mean? So if we say good boys, we're going to say boys good. That's the English positioning of it. But in Hebrew, we say yeladim tovim. Now, this could also be children, by the way, this particular word. I could have said banim, but I wanted us to eliminate that for a specific reason. So yeladim tovim. So this is masculine. So this has to be masculine. This is plural. So this has to be plural. And that throws a lot of people because we're just not really used to doing that. But it's certainly a big, big feature of the Hebrew language. And last thing I have to mention about when we're just dealing with nouns plus adjectives is that if it's definite, it has the. If the noun is definite, then like we say the boy, the good. Sounds very awkward, but that's literally what we're saying. Ha yeled, ha tov. So we can have a yeled tov, a good boy, or if he's going to be definite, then it has to be ha yeled, ha tov, the boy, the good. Okay,
hmm.
so you can go back and review this at your leisure, but this is really just the basic foundation of how adjectives work in this case. So and if we make it plural here, we have ha yeledim, ha tovim. So again, this is definite. That's what number 3 here is, definite. And I think that's it.
And in
So
English, that would be equivalent to the boys, the goods.
yeah, you could say that. That's right.
So, okay.
The boys, the goods. Thank you for bringing that up.
Mm-hmm.
It's very good. So let's move on to our next section. Here we have the word yeled again, boy, and the word midbar. So midbar, we have the 4th volume of the Chumash, of the 5 books of the Torah, is called Ba Midbar, in the desert. All right. Now, in English, we call it the Book of Numbers, but that's not what it translates to in Hebrew. It's just Ba Midbar, in the desert. So this is Yeled Midbar. That's noun plus noun. What would that sound like? It would be a desert boy or a desert child. Yeled Hamidbar would come out to be a boy or a child of the desert. Now, I could have said Yeled Shel Hamidbar, the word shell meaning of, but like I have here, Yeled, but now I'm showing it to you in the plural now, children of the desert, Yeledim Shel Hamidbar, but notice how it's going to strip down, and notice what happens. So the same phrase, children of the desert, the shell goes out.
And the pronunciation changes.
The mem goes out. All right.
Right.
And there's because of this particular type of noun, it's called segolit. You see this these three dots, three dots, those are called segol. Nouns that have those in them are known as segolit nouns. They have a certain pattern of pronunciation that's very, very repetitive. So you learn one, you learn them all. So this becomes Yaldei HaMidbar. So if you said Yaldei HaMidbar, would you be understood? For sure. But in this case, we're working really just mostly on reading and decoding our reading. So, and if I wanted to say desert children, up here I had desert child. So here I've got Yaldei Midbar. So we have Yaldei Hamidbar or Yaldei Midbar. So the phenomenon that I want to focus on specifically is that the first noun, if it's plural, like here, Yeladim, then when it goes into noun plus noun, we take out the shell, the of,
Nice.
then this is when the mem drops out. And it goes from im to a. Notice, so this would be im, Yeladim. Okay. Sorry, I didn't vowel point it. And this becomes Yaldei, or so it's a. Like we talk about a school, Batei schools, Batei Sefer. There's Beit Sefer and Batei Sefer.
It's going to take some practice, but I'm starting to see a little bit of a pattern, and it's going to take me longer to get there. But that's why I'm glad you're doing this on each show, because it's going to help us to set this in.
Now let's look at the feminine side of things. Okay. Now in this one, what changes? What changes is the first one, if it's plural, masculine plural. So you may have to go back and look at this again. Mm-hmm. But if we think of 4 quadrants, we have masculine singular, masculine plural. We have feminine singular, feminine plural. And the ones that change, there's only 2 of them that really substantially change, that have a very visible change. So it's the masculine plural and the feminine singular. So we just did the masculine plural. Now let's look at the feminine singular, and it's a specific form of feminine singular. What is it? It's when the first noun ends with a hey. Not all feminine nouns end with a hey. Many do. Some end with a tough. Some are feminine, they don't even appear to be feminine. Okay. But in this case, we're going for the obvious, and the obvious here is it ends with a hey. So we have here HaTorah Shel Hashem. This is the Torah of Hashem. If we take out the shell, then the hey converts to a taf, and it becomes Torat Hashem. It's the same idea, okay?
Yep.
But you see how it can be varied a little bit here, okay? So this makes it kind of possessive or belonging in this case. So that's the concept of adjacency. Now we studied recently Parsha Truma, and we mentioned the concept of Truma in last week's Parsha. It comes up again in this week's Parsha because all of these contributions that are being made to the tent of meeting, the tabernacle in the wilderness. So here we have HaTruma Shel HaOhel, the contribution of the tent, or here we have Trumat HaOhel, the tent.
Right.
Or we could even say the tents. It's not the tent giving the contribution. It's the contribution that's given on behalf of the tent. And it's the tent contribution versus the Mercedes contribution or whatever. So now I'm deliberately then kind of doing a slight departure from what we just did, but this is the rule. The first noun ends in a hey, so it's feminine. It's followed by another noun, not an adjective, so it converts to a taf. So we can just see here, this closes up, and it gets a little foot on it right here. That's the basic rule, and this is feminine, singular. What we looked at on the previous slide was masculine, plural. It ends with an im, and the mem goes away, and there's a vowel change from im to a. Now, here we have, I'm throwing in an adjective here. Shana Smecha, a happy year. Now, it's interesting that the spelling of this word, sin, mem, okay, could also be for simcha. Notice a slight difference here?
Right.
Okay, simcha. So simcha means happiness. So this is an adjective, a happy year, and this is a noun, shana shel simcha, a year of happiness. Okay. Now I could. What's the rule here?
Shanat Yeah, Shanat
Uh,
Simchat.
right, you got it.
Got
That's
it.
exactly right. Okay, so this becomes Shnat Simcha. And notice that there's a change, a vowel change here. Okay, don't worry about why. Just when you see it, you'll probably be good at guessing at it. And it basically translates the same way.
This is going to
Okay.
be so helpful as we're going through the Parsha. Our brains, even the viewer, are going to start looking for these patterns now. And since you put this out here in front of everything, it's going to make it a lot easier to start seeing things. I like that.
And it shows up in these passages, especially the first that we're going to study. And the first line within the first few words, it's got a double to it. So there's a feminine and there's a feminine singular and a masculine plural within three words coming up. So we're going to see that. Last thing I wanted to say is that the concept of smichut applies most visibly, like we said, to the masculine nouns in the plural that end with im, feminine nouns in the singular that end with hey. Smichut's also called the construct state in English because it constructs two nouns together to form a new thing or concept. So we took table and we took kitchen and we put them together and we made something that we all understand to be a kitchen table versus a dining table or a living room table or something else, or a conference room table. There's three, right? Conference room table.
Mm-hmm. Oh, nice.
Now you can verify this thing called the construct state at pealim.com. This is not so easy to find in Pealim. The verbs are easy to find. But if you go to pealim.com and you throw in any noun, like the word simcha that we just used, or yelid, just type it in using the virtual keyboard there, then it will show you the two major forms of nouns, something called the absolute state, which is where it's not smichut, and then what's called the construct state, which is really just a synonym for smichut. So smichut and construct state are the same thing.
Got it.
Okay, noun plus noun. And we said now that I gave you masculine plural with im, but what about masculine singular? Well, that doesn't change. Okay, there's no changes. Okay, so if we said yeled kibbutz, this is a kid, a kibbutz kid. That there's no change there. And noun with that's feminine plural doesn't have changes in the endings, but it might have a slight change in pronunciation. For example, the daughters of Yaakov, ha-banot shel Yaakov, that's what this is here, the daughters of Yaakov, becomes Benot Yaakov. Okay. Or as the Ashkenazim would say, and there's the whole system of schools around the world called Benos Yaakov.
Right.
Okay. Benot Yaakov. So this is Ha-Banot, and this is Benot. So that's what happens in that particular stuff. Okay, good. So we got this grammar piece out of the way.
Okay, I would like to insert something. I would like for you and I to have a separate show. We're not going to edit this out. This is going to stay in. A separate show doing exactly the same thing. But I would really, now that I'm seeing all this stuff here, it's making my mind go, whoa, wow, that makes so much sense now when I'm thinking about scriptures in like Isaiah, for example. So I would like to do a 1 hour breakdown of the Isaiah 53 discussing masculines and feminines and all this other stuff, because I know there's a lot of mistranslations in the Christian Bible on that to support the Jesus thing, and I think that would be a really good project to take just Isaiah 53, those handful of verses, and
in other words, you want to do a grammatical analysis on certain passages that are messianically co-opted. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, that would be amazing.
Okay, so we certainly can, because there are some grammatical issues. That's certainly the case with Isaiah 7:14, as Rabbi Singer and Rabbi Skobach and others have pointed out for a long time.
So Isaiah 7 and Isaiah 53, those are the two main ones I'd like to do first. But yeah,
okay,
cool.
I'd be happy to.
Awesome, you're the man.
Everybody. Okay, so we're at this week's Parsha, Vayakhel.
Well, I like that layout, by the way.
Yeah, it's a nice layout.
It's very nice.
So it's your turn to read. So
okay.
Go for it.
All right. I've got my white mouse on the screen right here. Vayakhel Moshe et kol. Ooh, I caught that. Kol. Adat b'nei Yisrael. Vayomer Alehem. Ele Hadbarim Asher Tziva Hashem La'aset. Oh, La'asot. Whoa. So La'asot Itam. Otam, excuse me. Otam.
Beautiful. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's go through this one more time a little bit faster.
Yes.
Vayakhel Moshe et kol adat bnei Yisrael vayomer alehem ele hadvarim asher tziva Hashem la'asot otam.
I am so incredibly jealous or envious of your ability to pronounce that resh. It sounds so amazing every time you say that. I'm like, golly, I just want to clear my throat so I can try to make it better, sound better.
If you knew how long it took me
Wow.
to do that, you know, I'd really.
That
I
is
remember
insane.
riding around in the car, trying to get that right. You know, gargle with milk.
Man, I love it. That's great. Okay.
Okay.
All right, break down each word. Here we
All
go.
right. So this Vayakhel, again, like so many of the verbs that we start out, especially in the opening of a parsha, if you go back through, if you go look through the names of the parshiot, and you look how many of them begin with va, then that's pretty much a key to you that the first word is going to be in a tense that gets reversed by the vav. This is called the reversing vav, or the vav hipuch. So if by itself, yakhel, which comes from the root kuf he lamed, kahal is a congregation, for example. A kihilah is a congregation.
Nice.
Kihilat Yaakov, the congregation of Yaakov, for example. So, but here, that noun, those two nouns I just mentioned, can form the basis of a verb, and this is a singular verb in the future. That's what the Yud is telling us here.
Is the Yud also saying he? Like,
yes.
Okay, got it.
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad you said that. I almost skipped over that. So Vayakhel here looks future, but it's really thrown into the past through the phenomenon in Hebrew, biblical Hebrew, the reversing vav, and says Moses assembled or gathered, or I saw one translation that says he convoked or convocated, you know, a strange word. Anyway, he put them together. So Vayakhel Moshe, what did he do? Et kol adat b'nei Yisrael. Now, this is the thing I was saying to you and why we did that whole piece on the grammar earlier. And I said there are three words that show up together that have this phenomenon of smichut. We have a feminine singular and a masculine plural occurring adjacent to each other. So this word adat, it's by itself, it would be Ada.
And that would be the masculine plural.
No, the Ada would be feminine singular.
No, I mean the tav at the end, though. Didn't it?
The tav at the end would be feminine singular.
Oh, okay. Okay, I got it backwards.
Okay, no problem.
Okay.
That we need to, and I'm glad you say those things because we need to then kind of chiropractically modify those and move forward.
Okay.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is here, Bnei Yisrael. We go back to Banim Shel Yisrael. We take out the shell, and the Banim becomes Bnei. Okay. So it's not Banei, it's Bnei. It's interesting because in Arabic it's Banei. But here it's Bnei Israel. So here we have smichut. We have noun plus noun plus noun. This is noun plus proper noun in this case. It's a proper name. All right. So that's why we brought this out as we did with the grammar, because it's a very frequent. It's a high frequency.
So every time you have a noun plus a noun or a noun three times, smichut applies every time?
Every time you have noun plus noun, smichut applies.
Okay.
The major difference is, you remember the four quadrants.
Okay, yes.
Masculine singular, masculine plural, feminine singular, feminine plural. Smichut most visibly applies
to the masculine.
Where there's changes
plural.
of letter, masculine plural, feminine singular.
Got it. Okay, cool.
So by the way, it took me a long time to get that. So if anybody's feeling a little stressed about it, don't worry.
Yeah, it'll start to
Just
come.
like it took me a long time to get the resh, the uvular trill in the back of my throat.
Yep.
There are a few pieces like the vav ha'ipuch, the reversing vav. It just drove me crazy trying to read the biblical text. So we struggled with it. And please, if you could maybe write a note to yourself. just write down the word struggle and remind me at the end in the 10 minutes we have. I want to mention something briefly about that and the value, the high value, why we're doing what we're doing. So the first line here, we see that Moses got everybody together.
Okay.
Now, we are told actually that this happened on the 11th day, according to the Masorah, the tradition, on the 11th day of Tishrei. Moshe went up to the mountain 3 times. This is the 3rd time he comes down. It's the day after Yom Kippur. And he's gathered everybody together. And now, Vayomer Alehem, he said, this is, again, just like here,
Yep.
it's future. This is a future form. Here's the root, okay? Here's the root,
Right.
okay? And this yud here tells me I'm talking about he.
Right.
And the vav in the front of this here is throwing it into the past, even though it's represented in the future. Why does Hebrew do that? I'll ask Moshe when I see him in the next life. So.
Okay.
And he said to them, Alehem. Now, if you could hear the word Alehem with an ayin, which means upon them.
Right. That's what I was saying. All. Yeah. All.
Okay. So this is to them. There's the hem here. Is they. Ele, these. So we said last session we have ze for this and zot, which is feminine form of this. And this is ele, which is these. And it's a masculine form of these. We have a feminine form. We have ele and we have elu. So we don't see that one, the feminine, very often. So ele, these, and there's no r, right, in Hebrew. It just says these, the things. So here's the shorish, the root.
Davar.
Dalet, Beit, Resh. And dvarim can be things. In modern Hebrew, they're pretty much, we always use the word davar in relation to a thing, an object. But in biblical Hebrew, it can mean words. And that's what we have happening here. These are the words which the word asher, tziva, commanded. So the word mitzvah, bar mitzvah, comes from this word. But this is the verb form. This is the root. Tzadi, vav, hey. And sometimes oftentimes vav is used as a vowel indicator, right? And then you come around like something like this, and you go, "Wait a minute,
siwa,"
or tsiwa,
right?
Because you want to go ooh.
Yeah, that's what I said. Tsiwa,
but it's not, right? It's not. It's tsiva.
Right.
Of course, once you know that, and once you just even know the word, you don't even think about it anymore. But when you've started out getting the basics of reading, as many of our good friends who are watching now have done, they've mastered the Alef Bet, they've got down the vowel points and vowel readings, etc., and they regularize that a dot over the vav is o, and when it's a dot's in the middle, it's like you hit him in the stomach, and he says ooh.
I don't know if you remember or not, but I'm the one who actually told you those as the way I learned them years ago.
I should give credit to whom credit is due.
I had to come up, man, I was on my own for so many years. It's like
Sure.
I had to come up with these different ways of remembering these things. And I was like, that just kind of made sense. So that's kind of cool. Okay. But also, I noticed that whenever there's a vav with the shiruk in the middle of it, if there's another vowel present, then it's always a vav, right? And so that way, for the new viewer, if they're trying to figure that out too, if it's got a shiruk, that little dagish in there, but it also has another vowel, then it would be a vav.
Right.
Now, would you ever?
That's a giveaway that it's yes. No, I know what you're going to say, and the answer is no.
Okay.
What were you going to say?
That's what I thought. Okay, so see vav here. So remove that kamatz. And you would probably never see a shuruk in the center or a dagish, excuse me, and a cholim over the top of it, would you?
No, and you wouldn't see this kind of a situation where it's a tsiu. You
right.
You would not see that.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that out.
Okay.
It's a little bit technical, but interesting, to dwell on for this moment. Okay, that line's gone. So which he commanded. So it's. Moses gets the people together, and Hashem tells him basically to say to all of them, the Bnei Israel, that which he commanded.
Now, where's the he in that part?
Siva.
I thought Siva was just commanded.
Well, you have to, every verb has to have an implied
masculine or feminine
person. Right?
Got it. Okay.
it has to be attached to a doer because this is an active verb. So somebody or something is actively doing this. And so this is Asher Tzivah Hashem, which commanded Hashem.
So we would never see a situation where it would say something like Asher Tzav Hashem, because Tzav is like the real core root word of commandment, right?
No, it's going to be structured in a way that tells you what's the time of the verb,
Okay.
what's the gender and number of the verb, and we call it from what binyan, from what
Gotcha.
form, like the 7 different forms of action.
Okay.
Does it? So
Wow, I've got so much to learn.
There's a lot to learn. Well, there's 7 forms of action, and there's basically 2 types of verbs. There's strong verbs and weak verbs. Strong verbs are pretty easy to understand. And weak verbs, this is a weak one because it ends with a hey. This is kind of a weak one because there's a hey in the middle. There are certain weak letters that cause certain defaults to happen, certain minor changes. And we'll see those as we go along.
And are they called weak or strong because of their pronunciation, because of the sharpness of their tone?
Yeah, they're called weak because sometimes they're called weak because, like for example, nun is a weak letter. We saw that in the last session we did where the nun falls away. It's just not there at all. And so you just have to know from knowing the shorish that there's a nun there, but it went away. So we'll again to the viewers, don't freak out. Just listen, pick it up as you can. All of this is highly repetitive.
Pause. You don't have to watch it start to finish. Pause. Back up 10 seconds. Back up a minute. Back up 5 minutes. Repeat a couple times till you get it. Like you're learning a song. You know, the way I have to learn music songs sometimes, I'll listen to like a half of a verse or a full verse, and I'll just pause it, go back and learn that one verse over and over and over again, and then finally add a second verse to it, and I can learn it better that way. Some people learn that way. So take your time for sure.
Good. So, Eli hadvarim, these are the things, Asher Tziva Hashem, which commanded Hashem, la'asot otam, to do them. Okay.
Nice.
And by the way, just to mention, because some people might say, well, is this a verb? Yeah, but it's what's known as an infinitive. And infinitives, I used to have this challenge with my high school students when I was teaching locally. They would want to put a masculine or feminine ending on this. And the infinitives, where they start with a lamed, like lelechet, to walk, ledaber, to speak, leechol, to eat, larutz.
So what is an infinitive in general? What is that?
So in English, it's to do something. Like in this case, what's the translation of this? You see right here, to do.
Right.
There's no person, there's no number, there's no gender, right? It's just, this is to do. That's technically called the infinitive form of the verb.
Okay, good.
And so it's just all stripped down to its basic word plus to, all right? To do something. Lasot otam. And the otam here is plural. And we would translate it them, okay? It's interesting because without vowel points, it could be atem, you, plural, masculine, but it's otam. I'm glad we have the vowel points. Okay, so we picked apart the first verse.
Okay.
Let's see you rip apart this second one.
Okay, here we go. Sheshet yamim te'aseh mala'acha. Is there supposed to be an I in there? Mala'acha or malacha?
Malacha.
Malacha. Okay. I know that means work or whatever. Okay. Ubayom hashviyi yiye lachem or lachem kodesh shevat shavat. Excuse me, like Shabbat. Okay. Shavat. Shavaton la Hashem kol haoseh bo malacha yomat.
Okay, it's a very sobering verse. And remind me, please make a note that in the 10 minutes at the end that I'm going to talk about this
struggle,
this death feature right here.
Okay, I'll put that on there too.
I don't want to go into that right now. Okay, let's pick it apart. So let me read it one more time.
Okay.
Sheshit yamim te'aseh melacha uvayom hashvi'i yeh lachem kodesh Shabbat Shabbaton l'Hashem kol ha'osevo melacha yumat. Okay, so Let's pick it apart. So sheshet, obviously you see here, it's a variation of the number 6, and it's actually smichut, as we talked about with noun plus noun. It has an aspect relating to numbers as well, and that's what's happening
So
here.
is that a feminine 6? Sheshet?
Actually, what's okay? So here's where it gets, we just late to all this time giving you a rule, and now we're going to break it. Right?
That's what
Okay,
I love.
because
Go for it.
because in Hebrew there are masculine and feminine numbers. The masculine numbers generally have a hey on the end of them, and
What?
they're not feminine.
Wow.
So if you go to a website called teachmehebrew.com and you look at the numbers, it'll show you the 2 columns and you'll see them. The masculine numbers take a hey, okay, but it's a little bit crazy making. For
Okay.
example, if I say shlosha yeladim,
Mm-hmm.
3 boys, and I want to talk about these boys. Do like shloshet hayeladim haele, shloshet. That same thing from smichut falls in here. But again, I don't want to dive deep into that right now.
Okay.
Just let's just pass over that. So, but it basically means 6. Okay, sheshit yamim, days. So the word for one day is yom. Yamim is days. And interesting word here, te'aseh. So this word te'aseh looks like it's a verb saying you should do something,
It does.
but it's not. It's a verb saying something shall be done. And it goes together with this word malacha, which is feminine, the hey here on the end. And the again, I'm resisting wanting to go down a rabbit trail, a rabbit hole of explanations
A
that
rabbi
don't,
hole.
that just a rabbi. That's funny. That ribeye to you.
Oh, nice.
That go. I just don't want to go down there yet. It's too complicated at this stage for some people.
Okay.
So let's just keep in mind that for 6 days, this thing called malacha, this kind of variation of work, can be done. Okay, it isn't saying you're going to do it. It says it can be done. And there's a reason for that. That's very interesting. Why it used that form versus it could have said, you shall do malacha.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't say that. It says malacha can be done, may be done. You see the translation here.
Right.
Okay, and then what happens? U, vayom, and we studied why the vav becomes an u. We looked at that whole context, talked about the bump letters. U, vayom, hashvi'i. And on the 7th day, the 7th, and you say, well, I thought Sheva was 7. Yes, but this is 7th, as you see here. Yom HaShvi'i. It's not Shvi'it, which would be feminine. This is Shvi'i, masculine. So it continues, Yeh Lechem. It will be, it's future, to you, plural, Kodesh Shabbat Shabbaton. Basically, a holy Shabbat. You could say resting or cessation. The word Shabbat means really to cease. It also means sit. It's related to the word sit, as a matter of fact. So it has the idea of cessation. It's interesting construction the way it is here. We won't go down that trail. To Hashem, to or for Hashem. And then gives us this rather sobering phrase here. Kol ha, notice
Mm-hmm.
that this is
The
a little
longer.
longer than this,
Right.
okay? Kol ha ose vo. And I say, well, why didn't it say bo in it? Okay. This is the letter beit, like up here, but it has a bunch of pronominal suffixes. Like if I say be, within me, in me, bo, in it. So kol ha-oseh bo, in it, what's the it that's talking about? Yom Shabbat. Kol ha-oseh, everyone who does in it malacha, whatever that's malacha means, versus avodah, yumat, is really worthy of the capital punishment. So the breaking of Shabbat is very, very serious. All right. So
Okay.
there's more to say on that, but we'll try and come to that. I wanted to at least get a couple other verses that are done here. So let's go to verse 3.
Okay. Very good. Let me get my mouse over here. Okay. Lo teva'aru. Is that right? Teva'aru?
Mm-hmm,
Okay.
mm-hmm.
Eish b'chol mishpotechem
Try it again.
Mish. Oh, it's a mishpote.
First,
Mishvote.
first syllable.
Mim. Mish.
What's the vowel?
There isn't one.
Yeah, there is.
The shva. Oh, it's like a half vowel.
No, right
Misha.
there. Right there.
Oh my gosh. You know what? Again, I had that mirror thing where it was like my brain was thinking it was underneath there. Mish. There you go. I'm sorry. Thank you for that. Good catch. You. Where would we go?
There.
Okay, cool. Okay. Also, the idea, not a joke, like the letter I with a little dot on top of it. It's a struggle I have. It's called dyslexia, I think. Okay.
Why don't you start over?
Mosh. No, I'm fine. Mosh,
Okay.
because honestly, some other people struggle with this thing too. So, okay. Mosh botechem
Mm-hmm.
bayom or bayom. Would that be ba
Mm-hmm.
or ba? Just
Buh.
ba. That's what I thought. Okay, bayom. Hashava. Hashabah. Dang it. Okay. Something's going on. Go ahead.
Okay. So lo tiva'avru, and now here it is giving you, unlike over here where we looked at this is passive. This is active. Here's the root, beit ayin resh, which has to do with igniting or kindling or causing a fire to take place. And this is plural, and it's second person. It's you. So it's basically saying, "You shall not light." Well, here's the translation right here. So I'm just looking at the Hebrew. So you're not going to light an aish fire.
So that's the example where the tav in the beginning made me think it was like an imperative, like you shall or whatever. Like
And
the
you're right.
tav.
It is.
But it
Okay,
wasn't
so
on the other one, but it is on this one. So
no, the other one is not.
got it.
That's correct.
Okay.
So you shall not ignite or kindle or cause a blaze of fire. B'chol moshvotechem b'yom haShabbat. So in all of your dwellings, I like this translation. I think it's a pretty accurate one, pretty fair one. And so a lot of people know that in Hebrew, that in Israel we have kibbutzim, but there's also something similar to a kibbutz called a moshav,
Oh yeah, right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that word moshav and this word moshvotechem is they're related, obviously. And if we break this down, this chem on the end is you, yours, basically. And moshvotechem, so it's moshvot, that's plural. And it does this little phenomenon of putting in the te underneath here, moshvotechem. We have mitzvotechem and moshvotechem. It's a very common ending of belonging to you, plural. B'yom HaShabbat, on the Sabbath day.
Okay.
Okay, and I think we have time for one more.
We've got about 10 minutes left.
Oh,
10
so
to 12
that's
minutes.
my
So
great
maybe
tip.
this
Okay.
is a good segue to move
Yes.
into your weekly Torah portion commentary.
Okay.
My dear friends, hope this message finds you well. If you like the way this channel is going and the channel has been a blessing to you, please consider supporting the channel by going to the website TaNaChTalk.com. TaNachTalk.com. Thank you once again for your time and for supporting TaNaCh Talk. Shalom.
Okay, so before you go, I'm going to just give you a reminder. You said to remind you of the struggle, and then also yomat was one of the words we want to discover, and also I want to discuss more about the malachah. So go ahead and take it away, boss.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
And keep me on track. All three of those are really good things. First of all, the concept of struggling. This isn't in this week's Parsha, but it's really in every Parsha. It's interesting because the word struggle is often the word that's associated in Arabic with jihad, struggle. And they always try to make it something that's about, the inner struggle of faith. Okay, sounds very sweet, but we really know what the Quran and the commentaries say. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but I'm just mentioning what I know in every morning in the preliminary prayers that we as observant Jews pray, we bless Hashem, we thank Hashem, who's commanded us la'asok b'Torah, to occupy ourselves, busy ourselves, and basically make it our business. The word la'asok and esek, the word for business, like an enterprise, they're related, all right? And we also have and Rashi's going to talk about this at some point, the medieval commentary, when he talks about amelut, with an ayin, amelut b'Torah, la'amol b'Torah is to labor. It's a strong word of this. So one of the reasons that Torah study is difficult, even in English, is because this is what causes a person. It's like an isometric exercise where you're doing like this with your hands, you're pushing, adding force there, and it builds you up internally. If it were easy, it wouldn't yield the benefit that comes from, as it says in the Ethics of the Fathers, hafoch ba dekula ba, this Aramaic expression, which means basically turn it over, everything is in it. It's speaking about the Torah. My Torah mommy, Rebbetzin Young Rice, used to say that all the time. Hafoch ba dekula ba. So the struggle, the labor, the intense effort that goes into it is really both a prerequisite and a conditioning status or a continuing quality of what we're to do. Let me say it to you really simply. It's supposed to be hard. So if you're coming to the Hebrew session here with us and you've made it through this far in this particular lesson and you've been with us since the beginning, bracha v'atzlacha, blessing and success to you, because it's supposed to have this struggle element. That is an isometric exercise.
It's like working out with weights. I mean, it's not going to do you any good at all if you don't feel anything at all. It's got to hurt.
That's right. And this is an antidote. We're told by our sages that Hashem created what's called the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, and it says that He created the Torah. The Torah is an tavlin, like a spice, that is an antidote or medicine against it. So Torah learning pushes back against the things that would oppose us and take us where we don't want to go. That's the first thing. The second thing I wanted to mention was what's this concept here? I want to talk about malacha and this concept of yumat. So we have this common word avodah. In fact, we mentioned it in last week's Parsha, that the giving of the half shekel was for the purpose of avodat ohel hamoed. And by the way, there's smichut, avodat ohel hamoed. It's for the work of the tent meeting. And that's where labor is going on during the week. But the reason that Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our teacher, put why this verse is sequenced here, is because the rest of this Parsha, if we go even further in this particular chapter, we get very quickly into a lot of repetition from what we already read about before in Parsha Truma, where there's the components, the furnishings of the tabernacle, all right? So there's a reason why the repetition's here, and I'm not going to go into that right now. You can read it in most of the commentaries. But this word malacha comes up strongly in relation to what went on in, with, and for the tabernacle. Malacha could best be translated creative work. So there's work that you do, but if you're digging a ditch, would you call that creative? No.
Right.
But if you're weaving a tapestry, that's creative, all right? If you're fashioning something into something else, like you're forming a tool or some other thing, you're creating an implement, all right? Then that is malacha. And what we don't do on Shabbat is malacha. So I could move, technically, wouldn't want to, I could move a 300-pound couch from the first floor to the second floor inside my house. I couldn't do it taking it outside, unless there's an Eruv, and why would I want to? I could do that, but I can't pick up a pencil or a pen and write a word.
So malacha doesn't mean work, but it can include work, basically.
I like to think of creative work.
Okay.
Versus just laboring. It's doing something that produces something else.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the laws of Shabbat are very complicated. For example, how we approach food preparation and a variety of other things. And the last thing I want to say in relation to this is that there are 39 different categories of malacha that are associated with the creative work of the tabernacle. Those 39 categories then are excluded from Shabbat, and those become what are known as the Av Tipus, or the archetypal, or the major categories of things that we don't do on Shabbat. So and so that some of them are agriculturally related things like uprooting a plant, for example, moving things from the private domain to the public domain. There's a whole lot of things here that apply for the Jewish people to observe. So if you're a Noachide or identify in a particular category, it's a lot easier for you, believe me. And to learn these laws it takes a long time. But there are 39 specific categories. They're derived from this. And by the way, that derivation comes from the concept of smichut. I said I wanted to come back to smichut in the beginning also. There is the concept of adjacency, where subjects are positioned in the layout of the Torah. There's purpose for that. And one of the best commentators on that is someone who's commonly referred to as the Baal HaTurim. Baal HaTurim is the one who authored the 4 huge volumes of Jewish law, the Arba Turim. And this preceded the Mishnah, what's known as the Mishnah Brewer, by the sage known as the Chofetz Chaim. And that is an amazing amount of work in there, an amazing amount of detail. And you imagine he did this, a few hundred years ago. But this concept then of melacha was very, very carefully explicated in much detail. So not only do you have the major thing, here's the major overarching principle, but then there's the derivatives that go along with it as well. And finally, a concept called muktzah. Muktzah is things that we don't touch on Shabbat. So because we're told in Pirkei Avot that one of the things we're supposed to do is to make a fence around the Torah. Asu siag laTorah. So to make a fence around the Torah means that you protect it. And the Torah tells us also to guard the Torah. Well, how do you do that? So when you put up a fence, the thing that you're protecting is further inside the fence.
It's
right?
like don't pick up a pencil. Why? Because we don't want you to write anything.
That's correct.
Right.
Excellent example. Very, very good example. You must have learned that in some very good place from some very wise person. Not me. So that's
don't sell yourself short there, mister.
So there are these barriers, or these people wonder why Jews have these like crazy kind of seem to be exaggerative things that we don't do. It's because we're being extra cautious, extra careful, okay? So that we don't come even near the possibility of a transgression. So if I have the fence, I won't transgress. And if I do, that's going to be something I'm doing willingly. And that can create this last thing I want to talk about.
I would like to add one thing about that fence, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
Because for a long time, I really had a problem with it in my mind. This is before I left the Messianic movement altogether, because they kind of tend to lead people away from true Judaism. But one of the things that made me kind of get it one time is when my kids were younger. They liked kicking a little soccer ball out in the front yard, and my rule for them was, guys, don't go in the road, because if there's a car coming, so if you need the ball, just tell me, I'll get it for you. Well, I would watch them, and just even at times when it was safe, they would kick the ball out there, and one of them would go out there and get it, and they would come back and say, but Dad, there was no car coming. I said, I don't care. So what I did is I did put up a fence. I put a rope from the corner of my shop all the way up to, it's like 110 feet to the tree, and I said, do not go past that rope. The law was don't go in the street. But now I'm telling them, okay, now don't go past the rope. If you don't go past the rope, then you won't go in the street. So, and for once that happened, it hit me all of a sudden. It was like, wow, I get it now.
That is a really profound, applicable, and apt illustration of what we're talking about here. So, creating boundaries and barriers for our own good. And that then leads us to this last concept that sounds pretty onerous, pretty scary, that someone who transgresses you say, well, look, I'm just supposed to rest on this day. And okay, so I messed up. I'm going to get killed for not resting properly. Well, that's a little of a trite way to look at it, I suppose. If we go back to the 10 Commandments, and we see the short little one that says, we often translate it, in the King James language, thou shalt not kill. But we all know, most people know today, if you're biblically literate, that means don't murder. Mm-hmm. And Rashi gives us insight that there's more than one way for someone to experience death.
Right.
Yes, there's the physical thing that we, unfortunately, so much are happening today. across North America. But the taking you could kill somebody's reputation. The concept of lashon hara, for example, could kill a person's reputation, or denying someone the opportunity to make a living in some way is considered a type of murder. So when it says that the person is going to be put to death, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be physically put to death. Yeah. We have a case in the Torah of a person who went out on Shabbat and he was gathering wood.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Hamekoshesh. We'll see him in the book of Numbers, I believe. And he did it. He was warned. For example, any of the prohibitions with their penalties, you didn't just one guy saw him and went and reported on him.
It's got to be publicly warned with witnesses. And
publicly had to
repeated
be warned.
Offense.
Repeated offense. All this. The Torah is not quick to take somebody's life. And it said that a Beit Din, the rabbinical council that experienced capital judgment in once in 70 years, was considered to be, quote, a murderous Beit Din.
Right.
So the Torah leans toward chesed, toward mercy, toward rachamim. So in this case of someone who transgresses malacha could experience a diminution in his life of blessing, because a person who when a Jew keeps Shabbat the way it's supposed to be kept, Shabbat keeps the person. That's the best way to say it. And that's so much so that our sages tell us that if all of the people of Israel were to keep 2 Shabbats in a row properly, Mashiach would come.
Wow.
That's mentioned in the sources. So I'm grateful that not everybody in the world has to do this, but it's definitely an imperative for the Jewish people who are looking to walk with Hashem the way we've been instructed. And so we don't want to experience a lack of life. We're told very specifically in the book of Deuteronomy, Uvacharta b'chaim, choose life, right? Because Hashem has set before us good and evil, life and death. So choose life, that it should go well with you and your children, that the Torah tells us. And so I hope these words that we've talked about today have some value to you and yours.
Go ahead and switch your camera, if you don't mind.
I'll switch back. Okay, very good. And
very good.
Back.
That's perfect. No, this is great. So I feel like, and I probably feel this way because we've already done 3 other ones, but I'm thinking, I feel like I got so much out of that. Probably got so much out because we've been doing 1, 2, 3, 4 back to back. And as we do this every single week, it's going to be easier and easier for all the viewers to start learning faster, because they're going to have a pattern that we're following, a timing schedule that we're going to be on. And it's going to be really, really helpful for the repetitious learning factor of this entire program.
So I think this particular shiur, this particular lesson that we did today, shows a number of things coalescing in terms of grammatical concepts and being able to pick them out in the text. It is a laborious process, but it's supposed to be. This is a true labor of love. And this is one of the ways that we show Hashem that we really care and we want to connect with him through his holy eternal word. And the picking it apart and mastery of it and internalizing of it, and then the short kind of what's it mean to me so far that we do here at the end,
right?
All has great value. So again, I want to thank you very much, William. Again, I say to all of our wonderful viewers, buy William a cup of coffee this month to help us to cover the expenses of keeping this thing alive. Everybody here is a contributor, and that includes you as well. All right, so we want, if you do that, I do promise, I can say this on a good authority, Hashem's authority, that when you give to something like this, there's blessing in that for you as well. And by the way, we have this phrase, I say it every time I give charity in shul, tzedakah tatzil mimavet, that charity giving saves a person from death. Now consider what we just talked about as a definition, a wider, deeper definition of death. Okay, it could be from losing a job, or keep preserving your reputation. We're not just talking about physical death and life extension, all right?
Yep.
The last thing is, see my email down there. If you want to correspond with me, I appreciate that. Please don't make caustic comments below the cost. It's not nice. So if you have a comment or you want to take me to task about something, don't do it publicly. That's called Lashon Hara. Get in touch with me personally. And then I do have a new radio show I've been doing. It's also a podcast. If you're interested in that, it comes out every week. It's very totally different. It's a variety magazine, audio magazine. Just write me at the email address, Gavriel, GS Hebrew.
GS Hebrew at gmail.com. Put you on your screen one more time. So you guys, and of course you're watching this, so you can actually pause it and take down that information. So very good. Okay, my friend. Well, thank you. Great show as usual, and I look forward to our next show, which we're going to try to keep everything. Like I said, these are all numbered in weeks, not episode numbers. So just if you see week 36, don't look for 35 earlier episodes. So that's not how we're working it. So, Gavriel, love you, brother. And we'll see you and everybody else next week. Shalom, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Shalom, shalom.
My dear friends, hope this message finds you well. If you like the way this channel is going, and the channel has been a blessing to you, please consider supporting the channel by going to the website, TaNaChTalk.com, TaNaChTalk.com. Thank you once again for your time and for supporting TaNaCh Talk. Shalom.
תמיד כולם ביחד, חשוב מכל חשוב והכרחי להיות ביחד. איפוק זו העוצמה, ויתור זו הגדולה, השאיפה והכמיהה.